Today I'm going to show you how I put together this terrain board of standing trees. So I got this stand of trees as part of the Secret Santa at my local games workshop last year, and I thought it'd be fun to use it as part of this terrain board. So it came with this platform and 3 of these trees. It did come with leaves, but to make it easier to access the models, I'm going to leave the leaves off. Alright, we're going to start things off by hot gluing the stand down to the foam. And then, just to make sure it doesn't move, we're going to do a bead of hot glue all the way around the side. Once the hot glue has cooled off, I thought it'd be fun to use some of these bark nuggets that I picked up to create some extra rocky texture around the edges of the base. So we'll hold those down with a little bit of hot glue, and if they wobble a little bit, I'll just do some extra hot glue around the sides. Now, to kind of cement everything into place and to blend the edges together with the rest of the foam board, I am going to use a little bit of some sanded tile grout to just kind of create a ramp or ledge that kind of blends the areas together. Now, I left that to dry for a couple of hours, and once it was no longer squishy or tacky, I'm just going to apply a little bit of some wood glue and sand in patches just to make sure that the glue doesn't start to dry as I'm applying sand. Then, to create some extra ground texture on the plastic base, we're going to apply a little bit of glue and sand to select areas just to create some extra coverage. Now, I'm avoiding certain things, like there's a lot of rock texture and some kind of like tree roots all over the base of this, so I'm going to do my best to avoid those so that we can do some painting and just kind of extra detailing on those areas. Alright, and here we go with it all glued down. So now I'm going to leave this to dry for about an hour or so just to make sure that nothing's going to come off. And then I'll do a quick spray of some watered down glue just to make sure the sand gets locked in place. Alright, once that was fully dried, I grabbed some burnt umber from Artist Loft, and we're going to do a all-over coat of the entirety of the tile. Now, the 3 spots where the trees are going to be sitting, I'm just kind of ignoring those because, well, they're going to be covered, so don't really need to worry about having them painted up. Once that was dry, I grabbed some raw sienna and did a quick and dirty dry brush over all of the sanded texture. And then followed it up with a light dry brush of Artist Loft Gray. Then I used a little bit more of the gray to kind of paint over all of the rocky textures that came included with the base. Now, I'm doing a triple coat of this because I don't want any of the other coloration to see through, so that we have, just pure rocky texture. Now, using some neutral gray, I'm going to do a quick dry brush of the entirety of the base. And you can see just how quickly the edges of the rock just kind of come to life with a quick dry brush this way. And using a 1-to-1 mix of raw sienna and parchment, I'm doing a quick dry brush of all the sand and ground texture, and avoiding what I can of the rocks and the tree roots. Alright, then I'll do a quick dry brush of parchment on all of the rock textures. Alright, let's take a moment to let that dry and go over the trees. We're going to do a quick and simple paint job on these. We're going to start with some raw umber, and this is going to coat the entirety of the tree and the branches. Then we'll follow it up with a kind of medium dry brush of burnt umber. And then follow it up with a light dry brush of raw sienna. Now some of these trees have some rocks on the bases. I'm going to paint those up the same way we did with the rest of the terrain. Now we're going to paint over all of the tree roots to match the trees that we just finished up. Now to help the roots stand out a little bit and give them a little bit of weathering, we're going to do a light dry brush of parchment. Now we're going to add a little bit of moss to the terrain. There's a few sections on here that kind of don't look like rock, don't look like sand, don't look like roots, so I'm painting over all of them with a deep green, just to kind of make them stand out as kind of a mossy area. This will add a little bit of extra color to the terrain to kind of help break up some of the more earthy tones of the sand. And once that's dry, I'm going to go over all of those areas with some sap green. Now at first I thought this was going to be the end of the build, but then I remembered that I had some ground cover flocking that I picked up a while back, and it ended up in my supplies box and promptly forgotten about, and I remembered that it was there and decided now's the time to actually use it and apply some much needed color variants to the terrain piece. So a little bit of wood glue, and then using a simple little mesh strainer here, I'm just kind of sifting it over the entirety of the piece, and I'm going to go a couple of passes here just to make sure all of the glue is completely covered. Once that's dried, I tapped it all off, and I think this looks so much nicer than it would have without the ground texture and the ground cover. I'm definitely going to have to go back to my previous builds and add a little bit of this to them as well. Alright, and here we are with the finished piece with a few models applied. This was a lot of fun to put together, and I'm really glad I remembered that I had the flocking. Definitely adds an extra element to the piece. So please hit that like button, subscribe for future content, comment in the comments section, let me know how I'm doing, and we will see everyone next episode.